Every single thing you do online starts with a question. Before a page loads, before a video plays, before an app checks its messages, your device quietly turns to a stranger and asks, "Where do I find this?" You type a name, something human and memorable, and somewhere in the background, that name gets turned into a number the network can actually reach. It happens thousands of times a day, completely invisibly, and almost nobody thinks about it. But here is the unsettling part. That question, the one your device whispers before every connection, reveals exactly where you are about to go. And for most of the internet's history, it was whispered in the clear, out loud, for anyone standing nearby to read. That is what this video is about. The internet's phone book, why it quietly leaks everywhere you go, and which defenses actually close the leak and which only seem to. The everyday act. Start with a simple thing you do constantly without noticing. You type a website's name, a friendly word, and a moment later you are there. But the network underneath does not understand names. It only understands numbers, addresses that identify machines. So between you typing the name and the page appearing, something has to translate one into the other. That translation is the lookup, and it is the very first step of nearly every online action. Nothing happens until the name becomes a number. It is so fast and so reliable that the entire system is invisible to you, which is exactly why it is so easy to forget that it is happening at all and that it leaves a trace. What the phone book actually is. The system that does this translation is called the domain name system, and the easiest way to picture it is as the internet's phone book. You know a name, you want the number, and the phone book maps one to the other. When you reach for a website, your device asks this system, "What is the address for this name?" and gets back a number it can actually connect to. The genius of it is that humans get to deal in memorable names while the network deals in numbers, and the phone book quietly bridges the two. But think about what a phone book lookup reveals. To ask for a number, you have to say the name out loud. And saying the name out loud is the whole problem. So number pk free to strengthen the two-phase verification denotes the lookup walks slowly. It is worth walking the lookup slowly because the path is where the exposure lives. When your device needs to turn a name into a number, it usually does not know the answer itself, so it asks a helper, a resolver, often run by your internet provider or by some other company. If that helper does not already know, it asks further up a chain of systems that between them keep the master directory of the whole internet. The answer comes back down the chain and your device connects. Several parties were involved in answering one simple question, and every one of them, by the nature of the job, had to be told the name you were looking for. The lookup cannot work without revealing its own subject. The quiet leak, here is the leak stated plainly. To find out where a name lives, you have to announce the name. That announcement, the question itself, is a record of exactly where you intended to go, created automatically before the connection is even made. It does not matter that the page you eventually load is encrypted and private. The question that came first told its own story. Anyone positioned to overhear that question learns the destination, even if they never see a single thing you do once you arrive. The content of your visit might be sealed. The fact of the visit, the name you asked for, was spoken aloud in the open the moment you began. That is the gap most people never realize exists. Who can read it, so who is actually positioned to overhear? Start close and move outward. On the local network, the cafe Wi-Fi, or the router in the corner. Anyone watching traffic could historically read these questions as they passed, because they crossed the network unprotected. One step further out, your internet provider sees them, because the requests flow through their equipment and, very often, to their own resolver. And the resolver itself, whoever runs it, sees every question you ask by definition, because answering is its entire job. So the list of who can see where you are going, just from the lookups, is longer than almost anyone assumes, and for years it included anyone with a casual view of the network around you. Why encrypting the page did not fix it. Now the part that surprises people most. The web spent years getting encrypted. The padlock appeared, pages got sealed, and everyone breathed easier, assuming their browsing was now private. But encrypting the page did almost nothing for this particular leak, because the lookup happens before the encrypted connection even begins. You cannot connect securely to a place until you know its address, and finding the address is the unprotected step that comes first. So you could load a perfectly encrypted page, feeling completely private, while the question that got you there traveled in the open for anyone nearby to read. The lock on the door said nothing about the fact that you had already shouted the address across the street to get directions. The resolver as a watcher. Step back and notice the quiet power of the resolver, the helper answering your questions. Because every lookup passes through it, It sees a running list of every place you intend to go, not the contents, but the destinations, which is often more than enough to paint a detailed picture of a person, their interests, their routines, their worries, the services they use. And this should feel familiar, because it is exactly the lesson from private networks. The question is never whether someone can see your destinations. It is who that someone is and whether you trust them. By default, that someone is often your internet provider, a company you did not choose for this role, and whose handling of that information you usually cannot see. Why a name reveals so much? It is worth dwelling on why a list of names is so revealing, because people underestimate it. The contents of your visits being sealed feels like the important thing, and it matters, but the destinations alone tell an extraordinary amount. The name of a hospital site, a particular bank, a support group, a job board, a dating service, each one is a clue, and strung together over days they form a portrait far more intimate than most people would willingly share. You do not need to read a single page someone loaded to understand their life, if you can simply watch which doors they keep knocking on. That is the quiet power hidden in this stream of questions. It is not the words behind the doors, it is the pattern of which doors, and the pattern is enough to know someone deeply. Defenders and trackers both understand this, which is exactly why where this information goes is worth caring about, the defense and its limits. So what closes the leak? The main defense is to wrap the lookup itself in encryption, so the question travels inside a sealed channel instead of in the open. This is a genuine improvement. It takes the question away from the people watching your local network and, depending on how it is set up, from your internet provider too. They can no longer simply read the names you ask for as they pass by, but notice carefully what it does not do. It does not hide the question from the resolver answering it, because the resolver still has to be told the name to do its job. So encrypting the lookup is real and worthwhile, and it also quietly moves the trust rather than erasing it, in a way that should sound very familiar by now. Your trust just moved again. This is the same pattern this channel keeps uncovering, and it is worth saying out loud because the marketing rarely will. Encrypting your lookups does not make the question vanish, it changes who is in a position to read it. Before, it was anyone on your local network and your internet provider. After, it is whoever runs the encrypted resolver you chose to use instead. That can be a real improvement if that party is more trustworthy and more careful than the ones you took the view away from. But it is a choice about whom to trust, not an escape from trusting anyone. The watcher did not disappear. You picked a new watcher and ideally a better one, but a watcher all the same. The leak that survives a tunnel. There is one more trap worth naming, because it catches careful people. Someone sets up a private network tunnel, believing all of their traffic, including these lookups, is now sealed inside it. But depending on how the device is configured, the lookups can quietly slip outside the tunnel and go to the old resolver in the clear, even while everything else is protected. The person feels fully covered, and one specific, revealing stream of information is leaking out the side the whole time. This is exactly why understanding the lookup matters. It is the first thing that happens, it is easy to overlook, and a defense that covers everything except this first quiet question can leave the very map of where you go exposed while you believe you are hidden. Why this is hard to simply switch off? You might wonder why. If this leak has been known for so long, it was not just fixed everywhere years ago. The honest answer is that the lookup is woven into the deepest foundations of how the internet works, and the unprotected version is fast, simple, and supported by absolutely everything. The entire network was built assuming names get resolved this way, in the open, by helpers along the path. Changing that means coordinating across countless devices, networks, and companies, each with its own pace and its own interests. The protected versions had to be invented, agreed on, and then slowly adopted, one piece of software and one network at a time, while the old way kept working underneath. That is why, even today, whether your lookups are sealed depends on your device, your settings, and the network you are on, rather than being simply true everywhere by default. The leak persists not because nobody noticed, but because the plumbing of the whole internet does not turn on a single switch. The defensive checklist. So how does a careful person think about this, framed simply as protection? First, know that the lookup exists and that it reveals destinations before any page loads. Second, prefer the encrypted version of the lookup where it is offered, because it closes the leak to the people watching your local network and often your provider. Third, understand who the resolver is, because that party still sees your questions, and choosing a trustworthy one is the real decision. And fourth, If you use a private network tunnel for privacy, make sure these lookups actually travel inside it rather than slipping out the side. None of this is exotic. It is just refusing to forget the very first thing your device says before everything else. What it is really about, and here is the part worth sitting with. Every connection you make online opens with a sentence, a quiet question that names where you are about to go, sent off before any of the privacy you rely on has even switched on. For most of the internet's life, that sentence was spoken in the open. And even now, closing it properly takes a little understanding rather than a single magic setting. The destinations of your entire online life, the running list of every place you have chosen to visit, live in that humble stream of questions available to whoever is positioned to listen. Understanding it is not about hiding from anything in particular. It is about seeing that privacy online does not begin when the page loads. It begins, or leaks, with the very first thing your device whispers to a stranger before you have gone anywhere at all. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself thinking about, the quiet machinery under the everyday internet, then this channel is your sort of place. There is no product to sell you here. It is just the systems, taken apart and explained by someone who has spent a long time on the inside of them. Subscribe and follow the rabbit hole. Next time we keep pulling at the same thread, the gap between what the internet feels like and how it actually works underneath, with another quiet system most people pass through every day and never once stop to see. The machine is stranger than it looks, and we are only just getting started.